Step, another step. I fly like a bird. Each beat of my heart was an echo in my ears, each breath a gulp of freedom. Running for me had never been just a sport, but a meditation. It was a moment when I could escape the noise of the world, from the numbers and reports, from all my problems. I was happy on the track. But now I was running on a stranger's path, and happiness had vanished as if it had never been. Our fitness trackers weren't just gadgets, but silent witnesses to our lives, until one of them started to lie. Every day, at exactly 7 in the morning, we go for our usual run around the neighborhood. My tracker would vibrate at the exact same moment hers did, telling me we had started a workout. It was our ritual, our small symbol of a perfect marriage. We'd conquer miles together, share our results on the app, and cheer each other on. I thought our lives, like our poses, were always in sync. I was certain of it. But then, on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday, I got a notification. I was sitting at my desk when my phone vibrated. It was a notification from our fitness app. Your wife just completed a workout. I was surprised because she doesn't run at lunchtime. I opened the app. There was a log, a 5.2-kilometer run. I knew it wasn't a mistake. I knew it was the truth, a truth I didn't want to see. I looked at her tracker. It looked as innocent as ever, but I knew it was hiding something her words couldn't explain. When she came home, I didn't say anything. I just asked her how her day was. She said everything was quiet. Then I carefully asked about lunch. She said she had been at her computer. At that moment, I felt not like a husband, but like a police officer, asking control questions, already knowing the answers. Her face was calm. Her voice was steady. "What about the tracker?" I asked, trying to sound as natural as possible. "I got a notification about a run." "Oh yeah," she smiled. "I just went down to the gym for a bit, walked on the treadmill, needed to stretch my legs. I told you I wanted to try." Her explanation sounded plausible, almost. Inside, my analytical brain started working. 5.2 kilometers isn't a bit of walking. I mentally converted that distance into steps, into time. For her, with her pace, that's at least 35 minutes. And a heart rate of 175 beats per minute isn't stretching your legs. It was an intense workout, at the peak of her abilities. It was an effort comparable to our morning sprints. I looked at those numbers, and they were more truthful to me than my wife's words. I opened her profile on my phone. My fingers were trembling as I scrolled through the screen. I wanted there to be an error, a system glitch, but everything was perfect. The run, the time, the distance. And then I saw the thing that made me freeze. Next to this run was a mysterious designation, outdoor run. That meant she was outside. Not in a gym, not on a treadmill. She was lying. I looked at those two words and they felt like a verdict. She was lying to me, her husband, the person who considered her a part of himself. She was lying about where she was, what she was doing. I looked at her face, and it felt like a stranger's. I no longer saw my wife. I saw a person who lies, and I knew I had to find the answer. I didn't say anything. I didn't scream or start an argument. In that moment, my analytical brain, which had been processing numbers and graphs, took over my feelings. I just nodded, smiled, and kissed her on the cheek. My kiss was cold. I no longer felt anything for her but emptiness. In that moment, I felt not like a husband, but like a detective. I had to find the truth. The next day, I went for my morning run alone. I turned on my app and started running the route that was on her tracker from her lunchtime run. I had to find out what that place was. I had to understand why she had lied. Running, which used to be my pleasure, had now become an investigation. Every step, every turn, every part of the street, I memorized everything. I felt like a hunter tracking his prey, and I knew I had to go all the way. I ran, and I thought about what she was doing in those moments. I thought about where she was. I thought about who she was with. I ran like a bloodhound on a trail,
and I felt I was very close to the solution. I ran a few more blocks, and the route led me to my own house. I stopped. I couldn't believe my eyes. My house, which I considered my sanctuary, was the final point of her run. I looked at the tracker, and it showed that I had run exactly 5.2 kilometers, exactly as much as she had run. She didn't go to the gym, she didn't run in the park. She was running on the streets that surrounded our house, returning to it. I looked at my house, and it seemed unfamiliar to me. It seemed alien.
I stood in the middle of the street, and my house looked unfamiliar to me. It was the same as always. Gray siding, a well-kept lawn, 2 cars in the driveway. But now I saw it differently. I saw it as a finish line, as a place she returned to after her secret runs. I looked at it, and a cold calmness washed over me. I no longer needed proof. I no longer needed words. I only needed the truth. I turned around and ran back, along the same route I had come. I ran, and I thought about what she was doing in those moments. I thought about where she was. I thought about who she was with. I ran like a bloodhound on a trail, and I felt that I was very close to the solution. I ran a few more blocks, and the route led me to my own house. I stopped. I couldn't believe my eyes. My house, which I considered my sanctuary, was the final point of her run. I looked at the tracker, and it showed that I had run exactly 5.2 kilometers, exactly as much as she had run. She didn't go to the gym. She didn't run in the park. She was running on the streets that surrounded our house, returning to it. I looked at my house, and it seemed unfamiliar to me. It seemed alien. What should I do next? Go inside the house, or?
Since I learned the truth, our house has become a stranger to me. It was no longer a sanctuary. It was a crime scene. I walked through the rooms, and every object seemed suspicious to me. I looked at our wedding photo hanging in the living room. It was perfect, just like our life. But now I saw only lies in it. Her smile, her eyes, it all seemed fake to me. My life was divided into 2 parallel worlds. In one, I was a loving husband who sat at the table, had dinner with his wife, and talked about work. In the other, I was a detective who studied her activity log, checking every record, every movement. I could no longer trust her. I could no longer trust myself. I became paranoid. I began to notice every little thing, every gesture, every word. Her gaze lingered on her phone for too long. Her answer to my question was too short. I began to look for new evidence. I went into the app to check her old runs. I saw that she had a few more routes she ran during lunchtime. They were just as illogical as the first one. They led along the same streets I had run on. They led her to the same places I had seen. I felt these numbers were slowly killing me. I couldn't sleep anymore. I would go to bed and I would think about what she was doing in those moments. I would think about where she was. I would think about who she was with. I would wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, and I felt like I was being haunted by the ghost of her lie. One evening, as we were watching a movie, I noticed she had new sneakers. I had never seen them before. They were bright red, and they looked brand new. I asked her about them, and she said she bought them on sale. I nodded, but I knew it wasn't true. She didn't like the color red, and I knew she wouldn't buy such expensive sneakers. I looked at them, and they were another piece of evidence for me.
The red sneakers. This small detail wouldn't leave me alone. I saw them on her feet, and they were another piece of evidence of her lie. But my mind resisted. I tried to find a rational explanation. Maybe she really did buy them on sale. Maybe she just wanted to try something new. My struggle was with myself. My inner analyst wanted to get all the data, all the facts, but my inner husband wanted to believe that all this was just a misunderstanding. I started setting small, subtle traps for her. I would leave my phone on the table to see if she would check where I had been. I would change the passwords to my accounts to see if she would ask me about them. But she did nothing. She was calm, as always. She was the perfect wife. She cooked dinner, talked about her work, smiled at me, and I hated her for it. I hated her for being so perfect. I couldn't sleep anymore. I would go to bed and I would think about what she was doing in those moments. I would think about where she was. I would think about who she was with. I would wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, and I felt like I was being haunted by the ghost of her lie. I was trapped in my own head. I was a hostage to my own thoughts, and I knew I had to find a way out. One evening, as we were watching a movie, I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't scream or make a scene. I just stood up, walked over to her, and took her hand. She looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw fear. She knew I knew something. She knew her lie had been exposed. I looked at her, and I realized that I didn't want to live in this nightmare anymore. I didn't want to doubt anymore. I didn't want to look for answers anymore. I looked into her eyes, and I said, I know. Her face changed. The smile she had worn all evening disappeared. The fear in her eyes was replaced by understanding. She knew I wasn't talking about something ordinary. She knew I knew. "What do you know?" she asked, a tremble in her voice. I didn't answer. I just took out my phone and showed her the screen. On the screen was a map, her route she had run yesterday. I zoomed in and showed her the place where the route ended. Our house. She looked at me, and I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes. She knew I had done the same. She knew I had run the same route. "It's not what you think," she said. I looked at her, and there was no anger or pain in my voice. There was only cold, icy truth. "Your lunchtime run, 5.2 kilometers, heart rate 175. It wasn't the gym. It was outside. Outdoor run. I looked at her, and I knew she couldn't say anything. She couldn't say anything because the numbers don't lie. "I don't know what's going on," she said. "I know what's going on, and I know who's going on." I showed her another photo. It was a photo from her profile where she was running with a man. I found him in her followers. He was her running friend. His profile was full of photos from her routes. He was her shadow. I looked at him and I realized I had seen him. He lived in the house across the street. I had seen him when I was running her route. He was part of her life that I didn't know about. He's just a friend," she whispered. "Friends don't meet at lunchtime to run the same routes, and their pulses don't beat in unison," I said. "Your tracker showed that you were running together. You were synchronized, just like us." I looked at her, and I saw her slowly sink to the floor. Her face was pale. She couldn't say anything. She couldn't do anything. I was right. I was right, and it was the most horrible thing I had ever felt. She slowly sank to the floor. Her face was pale. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just looked at me, and in her eyes there was emptiness. She knew I was right. She knew I had found all the answers I was looking for. I felt not like a winner, but like an executioner. I had killed our marriage, and I felt my own truth slowly killing me. I didn't say anything. I didn't lift her from the floor. I just took out my phone and went into the fitness app. My fingers trembled as I pressed the icon. I went to her profile. I looked at all her runs, all her achievements. It was all a lie. It was all a deception. I pressed the unfriend button. A pop-up window appeared. Are you sure you want to remove this user? I pressed yes. Her profile disappeared. Her runs, her achievements, her photos, it all vanished. Only my data remained on the phone screen. My steps, my runs, my pulse. I was alone, and it was the most horrible thing I had ever felt. I left the house. I left her on the floor. I left everything behind. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just walked, and I felt my own truth slowly killing me. I walked, and I thought that my life was a lie. My life was a deception, and I knew I had to find the truth, even if it would kill me.
Several months have passed since then. We got a divorce. Our house was sold. I live in another city. I continue to run. My fitness tracker is still with me, but now it only shows my data, my pulse, my steps, my runs. It no longer synchronizes with hers. I run on unfamiliar streets and I feel free, but this is a freedom that was bought too dearly. Sometimes when I run, I think about her. I think about what she's doing. I think about where she is. I think about who she's with. I think that her tracker now synchronizes with another person. I stop and I look at my tracker. It shows that my pulse is steady. It shows that I'm calm, but I know it's a lie.